What is popping, guys? Let's see if I can knock this recap out of the way. Sorry about it. Y'all was loving my Bobby Brown recap part one video. So let's see if we can get the same love for part two, right? So anyway, part two opens up with the accident of 1996, where I'm sure it was a drunk driving accident. They didn't go into detail, but they did utilize the word toxicology, okay? So then the next scene goes into where they are on the tour bus, and this is where I finally know what the hell Bobby was talking about, because I read the book, and that Whitney had said in her interviews before that she smoked woodies. She said she smoked marijuana laced with cocaine, right? So up until last night, I was like, are they really like sprinkling powder on the woody or on the marijuana? Or are they smoking, air quotes, woodies and putting crack cocaine in the marijuana? Now, who's that? What's his name? Trick Daddy from down Florida? Oh, he loved the bunta. Or bunka, or bunk, whatever they call it, child, whatever they call it. Anyway, I finally got it in my mind now. When they say they be smoking weed laced with cocaine, child, that shit is crack. Some people don't like to make the differentiation between the two, but it's a difference, okay? One you sniff, one you smoke, okay? So anyway, and then, some of them you can shoot, it's up to you how you get down. That's your judge, okay? But anyway, he was on the tour bus and he was lunching because he smoked that woody. And then, he pulled out a gun, put it to the driver's head and was like, pull this thing over. And they pulled the thing over. And what he thought he was going to be was the blackest man in the universe on that day, and run up to a white man's house down south, okay? Luckily, that white man ain't blow his head off because he recognized Whitney Houston, okay? Whitney saved his life that day, okay? But anyway, he thought that Whitney was trying to kill his ass, and that wasn't what was happening. It was the bunta talking to him. Them demons was in his face. They was screaming. They was pulling on his soul, girl. They was pulling on his soul. But anyway, they was on a tour bus for that NE Heartbreak Tour, child, and he was lunching. So anyway, we get to 1999, and this mother hunchy is cooking crack in the kitchen. You hear me? So he cooking the crack in the kitchen. I'm saying to myself, what in the hell has this world come to when Whitney Houston house is a crack house, baby? I mean, god damn it. And then I remember reading in the book that Bobby Brown was talking about he was doing heroin too. So he said he didn't, from what I understand, he said he didn't shoot it. He sniffed it. That thing that Weezy was doing, Lil Wayne was doing back in the day when he was 13 years old, and that goddamn going, what's his name? Birdman knew that child was sniffing that old girl. But anyway, moving on, I digress. So anyway, Whitney ass come out to the kitchen because Bobby didn't had a stroke, child. He was on his way to take his good cooked crack up there to Whitney Houston. And Whitney Houston came downstairs to check on her crack, and Bobby was passed out on the floor. Okay, that ninja had OD'd, and Whitney was oblivious to what was happening in the damn, kitchen. She just went back upstairs. And let me just give that Whitney Houston girl. I mean, I didn't really believe that was Whitney Houston in part one, but let me tell you something. That part two was something special. And let me just intervene a little bit, or digress or sidebar a little bit again. That Bobby Brown, despite how he was with women, because, he loved women, sex, drugs, cars. He just lived lavishly, right? But let me say something about you. He really did take care of the women in his life, because when he was in the Whitney documentary, they tried to question him about Whitney's drug use, and they wouldn't do it. Bobby Brown wouldn't do it. Bobby was like, no, I'm not here for that. We're here to talk about Whitney's life, not her death. So kudos to Bobby. And by the end of this movie, I'm sure everybody believed that Bobby was a pretty good dude, right? But he didn't slander Whitney at all. There were some things in the book that, I'm going to get into later, or some more things in the book that I'm going to get into later, but let's move on, okay? So he had his stroke, and he's in the hospital, and he looks at Whitney Houston. He said, Whitney, no more heroin, no more coke. I don't want to get high no more. We is done. Shasta La Vista. So they leaving from they touched down. I think it's back in either New Jersey. Was it New Jersey? But he had a violation of probation warrant waiting on his ass when he touched down, and this was in front of Bobby Christina. Bobby Christina, that poor baby. And didn't the little girl that was Bobby Christina and the grown-up Bobby Christina look just like them? I mean, I don't know how Bobby Brown did it. Looking at two little girls that look just like my baby. I don't know how the heck he did it, but at any rate, the sheriffs was waiting on his ass when he touched down. Was it back in New Jersey or was it in Atlanta? I'm not sure, but they was waiting on his ass. And, they picked him up and they took him to jail, right? So both Whitney and Bobby were going through their struggles. Bobby was withdrawn from heroin and all the other drug use, but he made it. Thankfully, he had a cellie that was supportive of him. Now, there were temptations while they were there, but, Bobby made it through, right? Whitney, on the other hand, on the outside, according to the Whitney documentary, Whitney had her struggles long before Bobby came into the picture. And Whitney's struggles began with her own family. And let me say this. That Houston family is a piece of friggin' work. I am going to put in the description bar my Whitney Houston documentary. But not only did that movie prove that Bobby Brown was a decent guy, so did Bobby Brown, I'm sorry guys, the Whitney Houston movie, the Bobby Brown book, and the Bobby Brown movie showed that this guy was a decent guy. He wasn't all bad. When he really loved, he loved. That's how most men are. So anyway, he went through his temptations in jail, but he made it. Then we got the Free Bobby Brown movement. Remember when, Sweaty Whitney met him and she jumped up in his arms, and child, they got into the limo, and Bobby Brown looking all clean and sober, and Whitney like, look what I got for you, baby. And she brought that cocaine back out. Bobby was like, I'm clean, Whitney. I don't know, what we want to do, but I am clean. Whitney was like, well, screw you. I'm going to take my cocaine and I'm going to turn my back on you and I'm going to get high because I need it. You may not need it, Ninja, but I do. So then we get a moment where Bobby Christina and Bobby Brown are in the kitchen together and they're having a daddy-daughter moment. And what I thought was real sweet, that they had a song, or Bobby Brown had a song with all his kids. If you want me to stay, I'll be around. It's Sly and the Family Stone. And what's crazy is Sly, if he's not dead now, he has his struggles with addiction too. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So he is in Atlanta in his parents' home, and him, Bobby Brown, and Tommy are discussing the record with Ja Rule. See, I know you're getting bored dealing with him. You miss my loving, my hugging, my thoughts, something like that. So anyway, let me digress also. When I remember this song coming out, this is when I looked at Bobby Brown and said, what in the hell is going on? Because I thought Bobby was still getting high at that point because he looked so bad. And I forgot to mention this. When he had his stroke and when he OD'd, when I mentioned it, when Whitney walked up on his ass and she didn't know what was going on, she was like, Bobby, where the hell is my coke or my crack? I'm waiting on you upstairs, Bobby, where the hell is our crack? He had a stroke. And what I was like was, Bobby, you hid all that time that you had a stroke and we're looking at you going, you look a mess. And it wasn't that you was looking a mess. It was just you had a stroke, So not that the drugs didn't tear you down, but I did not know that Bobby Brown had a stroke so early. When was that? I think it was, when was that he had a stroke? 1999. That was young, you know? But anyway, that's when he rehires Tommy back to be his manager. He's like, look, I'm trying to get this Ja Rule song popping, but he ain't called me back yet. Tommy, won't you get in contact with him? You know what that means. Tommy was like, I got you. And this is 2002 we at now, where Bobby was pulled over for doing 52 in a 35. So he got locked up for that. I don't know what kind of, oh, is that reckless driving? Yeah, I think it's reckless driving because anything over 20 is reckless driving, it seems like. But at any rate, Whitney didn't bail his ass out. Whitney left his ass there, and he caught a cab home from jail. So when he got out of jail, that's when he walked up on Whitney Houston doing an interview with Diane Sawyer. He had no idea that that interview was scheduled. Now notice, and at this point, this is where we can tell that, or this is where we're noticing that, or in the movie, that they're separating. They're not even communicating with each other anymore. They're just, when things are basically over. You're just there, just breathing each other's air, just to get along, right? But Bobby felt a certain kind of way because he felt stupid because he didn't know what the hell was going on. He looked at that lady in her face and said that no, I did not do drugs. Whitney said to him, to Diane Sawyer, you remember the infamous words, crack is whack, but for real, the whole house was filled with crack. Come to find out, I guess crack was not whack to them. But who knew at that time that Bobby was actually clean? I don't think the world knew that he was clean. It was just that because he had that stroke, he was looking so haggled that we thought he was still on it, when in actuality, he wasn't on it. She was on it. She was still on it. So then, they get into an argument after Bobby was like, you made me look like a fool in front of Diane Sawyer. And that's when Whitney threw up in his face and reminded him that she was a Leo. This is my house and don't nobody tell me to do nothing. They got in the argument. Y'all, they arguing in front of Bobby Christina. She knows that there's some issues going on, but they still tread on. They still move forward in the relationship. So then we get to the point where Bobby Brown is like, let's do a Christmas album, baby. She's like, sure. But Tommy's outside, okay? We don't have no problem with doing a Christmas album. I thought, if Whitney and him was alive, whenever they did, duets together, I loved it because her voice was so pure. His voice was so raspy. It was like a good and bad combination that really, really worked well for me. But while he trying to tell her let's do a Christmas album, she like, okay, but your brother's outside waiting on you. Why don't you go ahead out there? She pushing him out there. So he says, okay, baby, I'm got some work I need to do, so let me hurry up and get out here. To Tommy, when he get out there, he sit in the passenger seat. Tommy's like, you always late. What the hell is going on here? He was like, hold up, Tommy. I got to run back in the house. He run back in the house and Whitney is there, trying to sneak in another man. This is the thing where he talked about it in the book. We know, or they knew, or Bobby knew, but Whitney Houston had an affair with Tupac. According to Bobby's book, where he is protecting Whitney Houston, but he still needed to give a little piece of it because, like he said, everybody thought that Bobby was the bad guy. So Bobby said in the book that she was sleeping with the drug dealers and she was sleeping with the producers. So he didn't burn her out, but he did kind of shine a little bit of light on her. So then Bobby and the dude is fighting. Bobby accidentally hit Whitney in the mouth by accident, but he back before the judge for a violation of probation. When he get out, then Tommy's like, let's do this reality TV thing. What was it called? It was all about Bobby. It wasn't Bobby and Whitney. It was Being Bobby Brown. That was the name of it. And Tommy was like, yeah, you need to do this because we need to change your image to the world because everybody think you're a bad boy. You're not a bad boy. You're a good guy. And on top of that, your ass is broke. So I love the show. I don't think I watched it while it was live, not live, but when it was current on the air. But I did watch a couple of episodes on YouTube, and I liked their dynamic. It worked well because you got to see that Whitney Houston was just as crazy as Bobby Brown, and their family was good. And like I said in my Whitney Houston documentary video, I swear to you, that relationship was just about Whitney Houston chasing Bobby Brown around, and just it was just a little girl that was just in the corner, just there occasionally. Like Whitney did more focusing on Bobby Brown and trying to keep that relationship together than she did focusing on her child and trying to make her child be the best child. But everything about Whitney was messed up. But you could see that in the show being Bobby Brown. You could see that in the Whitney documentary. But Bobby Brown did not depict that in his movie. I'm telling you, this guy was a good guy because he really could have shitted on a lot of women in this, a lot of women in his life in this movie. So then. The critics of the show, they looked at Whitney Houston as a joke. She blamed him for it. And she just blamed him for a lot of things. But I think that was the drugs making her delusional. Okay? Then we get to the point that, again, Whitney is being upset about how her clean image is changing. But again, the world believes that that clean image changed because of Bobby Brown. And Bobby Brown says, okay, the world didn't hate me until I married you, which is true because all the ladies loved his ass beforehand. So they get into a big fight. They get into a big fight. Bobby comes home. Nobody's there. He calls Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is like, what the hell do you want here, Bobby? He was like, well, where's Bobby Christina? Whitney is like, he with me. She knew that her relationship was at a point where he really didn't care about her in that way anymore. So the best way for her to get him and to hurt him, because Leos do things totally different, is to hurt him through their daughter. Okay? And that would be by taking his daughter from him. So that's when he said to Tommy, he was like, look, Chrissy is all I care about right now. Me and Whitney are done, but that's all I care about. So we're at the reunion. Well, we're at a reunion tour with Bobby Brown and BBD at the time. This is where he popped back into, this is where Alicia pops back in, his wife now, right? And I could not remember yesterday, that particular part jogged my memory on something. Remember yesterday or the day before yesterday when I did the part one, when I said it was just strange how there was no lead up as in how he even had that connection with Alicia. But I remember in the book, if anybody read the book, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. But he met Alicia through one of his rehab stints. And I looked at Alicia, I was like, she's a pretty light-skinned woman, but she looked like she didn't had her struggles before too. So getting back to where he sees her at a BBD, Bobby Brown concert, and I guess he got these feelings of, I want me some Alicia. And Bobby questioned her about, okay, what's up with Teddy Riley? She was like, I ain't seen Teddy Riley since 1992. And I'm saying, well, wait, was she messing with Teddy Riley? Because that's not what I believe from the book. I don't remember him saying that he knew her through Teddy. Now, it's very possible because her and Teddy did work before, because like I said, she was in the Rex and Effect video with Rump Shaker, but I was confused as to she just work with him, or was they messing with each other? I was confused. Anyway, that's when Alicia finds out that there's no more Whitney and Bobby. So then we get to a point where Tommy and Alicia, I guess they having a standoff against, who gonna be Bobby Brown's manager. And Tommy was like, look, Bobby Brown is not easy work. You do what you do, I do what I do. I'm here to make sure my brother stay clean. You here to manage him. However, our jobs is, but just know that Bobby Brown is a piece of work. So now I remember this part from the book where Bobby Brown had said that Alicia was not playing with him. He did have feelings for her, but she wasn't playing with him. She made him sleep on the couch. She really and truly didn't mess with him until she felt like Bobby Brown was in a good place. Now, what wasn't said, that was said in the book, was that Whitney Houston was calling to Alicia's house. Bobby Christina was calling to Alicia's house. Whitney being immature, she was having Bobby Christina to call the house, tell my daddy to come home, you sleeping with a married man, blah, 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 just all these different things, right? So, Whitney Houston, even at that point right there, believed that those two were going to get back together. Bobby Brown said that Alicia was dealing with him and alcoholism because she said he had one stint with relapse, and the rest of it was alcoholism. But she stayed with him. And even though she stayed with him, she wanted more from him and she expected more from him. So now we had a 6-month period when they in a relationship. I guess the relationship was 6 months. And I was like, okay, you would think the way the movie made it look is that it had been 3 or 4 years down the line. But LaPrincia was saying, I guess they was having this family dinner thing or Christmas, I don't know, some kind of dinner. And all the kids were there, all Bobby's kids. It was Bobby, LaPrincia, Bobby Jr., and Landon. Bobby Christina wasn't there, and they said it's been a long time since they seen their sister, right? But the kids really and truly, wasn't really feeling her because, like LaPrincia said, it's only been 6 months. What you want me to do? Kiss her in the mouth, Dad? So now Alicia is pregnant with baby number 377, and Bobby Brown's mother is saying to Alicia, I like you, Alicia. I like you, girl. And it was so funny to me is some of these mothers who be, knowing that their son be, not stellar. They like every woman that can take care of their son. If the woman was a piece of trash or an alley cat, they don't have no time for the women. But if the woman is somebody who got it going on, oh yeah, they want to marry their son off quick. So then that way they ain't got to take care of that Basil anymore. If you don't know who Basil is, that's the guy from Brewster Place, Oprah Winfrey's son. So moving on, they trying to change his tire, and Bobby Brown don't know how to change his tire. They're in Florida now on tour with, I don't know, BBD, I don't know, but they on tour in Florida. And Bobby Brown is singing Rock With Your Baby, and he bring Alicia on stage. Baby Cassius is on her chest and like a little courier, and Bobby Brown says, will you marry me? And she like, oh yes, Bobby, I'll marry you, Bobby. Now listen, Alicia has got to love that ninja if she has married the old, fat, black, greasy, tired Bobby. And let me take it back because, when I read the book, Bobby said that he deals with a lot of insecurity issues because he isn't the old Bobby that he was before. Hell, none of us are the old anything that we was before. Bobby's mother dies. But we thought that Bobby's father was going to die first, or at least they thought that the father was going to die first, because I think the dad had cancer. But the mommy dies. She has COPD. Then the father dies unexpectedly. But when Whitney went to Carol Brown's funeral. That's the mother. Do you know? Well, let me say this. When Whitney went to Carol Brown's funeral, okay, for all those people that got a problem with me utilizing the words funeral, guess what? F-U Negro. Funeral. So then Whitney Houston went there and sang her song. What was it? I forgot the name of the song she sang, but anyway, the kids is reminiscing over grandma. Bobby Christina's dead, and then the father passed. Bobby's practicing to join New Edition, but Alicia's worried because she feels like he's pushing himself too hard because, again, his health is not the best. He's gained some weight. He's just not the same guy. Like I said, none of us are. So let's see. They're on tour for the NE tour, and Johnny tells Bobby Brown that Whitney Houston is dead. They try to call Bobby Christina. She is unreachable. Then let's see the call to Bobby. Oh wait. He got a hold of Bobby Christina eventually, and she was like, I guess, dismissive of her dad. So then we're at Whitney's funeral. F-U Negro. I know that it's not funeral. We know that it's funeral. I'm just being funny. Negroes. So then we get to where Bobby is asked to leave at Whitney Houston's funeral because I guess it was too many of his kids there, which is crazy because it was only him and the kids. But they asked him to leave. And I'm like, so you want to kick the kids out? Those are her stepchildren. I still don't understand that. But I'm glad he spoke about it in the book and in the movie because it makes sense now. 2 years later, from Whitney Houston's death, Bobby Christina gets in contact with her dad. They're at lunch. And she apologized for not being at his and Alicia's wedding. She admitted to her daddy that when you left, it hurt. I felt abandoned by both my parents. And then she told him that she wanted to record a song with him because before her mother died, Whitney was working on her voice. So then we find out that Bobby Christina is in a coma, right? And then, eventually they had to pull the plug on Bobby Christina. And then you have Bobby Brown versus Nick Gordon. Again, I really thought that they were going to put Ray J in the book. But tell me something. I mean, not in the book, in the movie. But tell me something. That guy who Whitney Houston brung home, or when she was kicking Bobby Brown out the house, go ahead, baby, go ahead. And then she was sneaking another dude in the back door. Didn't that dude put you in the mind of Ray J? Because Bobby Brown has a problem with Ray J too, because Ray J was one of the dudes who was sneaking in the house too. I told you that daggone Ray J was Whitney Houston's drug mules. She liked her drug boys to have, big penises and a lot of drugs. So anyway, the movie closes out with the real Cassius dancing on top of the table. I said, oh my God, if that ain't the light-skinned version of Bobby Brown, oh my goodness. Now, him and Alicia kids are freaking beautiful. Now, they look like Bobby Brown now, okay? And that's all I got to say about that. But they look like Bobby Brown, but they're beautiful children. Very, very beautiful. So anyway, guys, remember this. The same people you meet on the way up will always be the same people you meet on the way down. Naysayers, my patron loves. Have a good one. Deuce.